What is going on, guys? Welcome back to these videos. My name is Cameron, and as you can tell, we've switched environments again. I've moved out of my apartment and I now live with 10 people. Anyway, this is the review for Ultimate Spider-Man issue 121. Usually for YouTube videos I don't do the full setup, but today I've got some lights on, I've got a microphone on. Background is still being sorted out, but you can see I've just put a few things back there just to make it a little bit more appealing to you guys watching. But I'm going to be throwing some colours back there, putting up some more stuff hopefully, but I'm sure that's not really what you're bothered about. So in the previous issue we saw Liz Allen find out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man after Peter Parker revealed his identity to her. It was so awesome, but the entire issue pretty much revolved around Liz Allen trying to make this decision as to whether to go with the X-Men or whether to go with Magneto the supervillain to find out who her father was. And of course it turned out to be the Blob, so like, we know who it is, but she doesn't. But yeah, in the end she chose to go with the X-Men, and I think that's a really cool thing how the Ultimate Spider-Man comics choose their moments. Like, even though it's kind of a mediocre issue, it's not really super crazy, but it has badass moments within it. So for example, Peter revealing his identity, and also the other moment with the X-Men turning up was so awesome. They just look so badass, and the Ultimate Spider-Man comics are really good at that. By the way, if you guys aren't following me on Instagram, you probably should do. The link is in the description. You can stay up to date on everything that I'm doing when I'm not making these videos. Film shoots with Rolls-Royce, Bossa Studios, who made Surgeon Simulator. But yeah, anyway, let's get into Ultimate Spider-Man issue 121. Okay, so we're getting into the issue, and right off the bat I've got to say that this is just a filler issue, so it doesn't do anything for the future of the Ultimate Spider-Man series as a whole. There's not really any plot devices that hold any risk, or like, basically this issue could just not exist and it wouldn't make any difference to the next issue or the previous issue or anything like that. But I feel like it has a little bit more of an underlying meaning, because if you look at the assignment that Peter and Kitty Pryde are actually on, it's about looking after an individual, it's looking after this baby, and it sort of gives the insight that being Spider-Man, like everything, always gets in the way of having that responsibility outside of being Spider-Man, taking care of a child. And so although this comic is just a filler comic, if you really look into it, it sort of touches upon that fact of responsibility and how Spider-Man can't really have a normal life. But I feel like that might be looking too much into it, like on a deeper level, and I don't really think it's that. I'm not really too sure, maybe that's just me. But again, something else that I'm not really too fond of is the fact that this is Peter Parker reminiscing on events that have already happened. Peter is sort of telling us as the reader what's happened in the last 18 hours. And it takes away a little bit of the connection between you as the reader and the characters in the comic, because you know that everybody already survives. Peter is alive in the future. So I don't know, it kind of feels like lazy writing in a way, but then again, this is Brian Michael Bendis. He's like awesome. But yeah. Doing flashback things like this I don't really like. But on the other hand, it also gives you an opportunity to catch up with some of the characters that we haven't really seen in a while, like Flash Thompson, some of the teachers, and also Peter actually trying to do his assignments in school and just seeing how he's sort of failing his classes due to Spider-Man. But just as we're going through this, I know we've just started it, but I'd love to hear your comments below about what you think of this as being a filler issue. Like, do you enjoy filler issues? Because if you think about it, in present day when these comics were releasing, they were releasing once a month. So imagine waiting a month for this comic that doesn't really have anything crucial to do with the plot. Like, it would be fairly disappointing, and you'll understand what I mean by that the further we get into the comic. Now, taking notice of what's happening on screen, even this far into the Ultimate Spider-Man series, we're still seeing how these characters are different to their 616 counterparts from the Amazing Spider-Man comics. And a good example of that is Betty Brant, who's obviously a popular character in the J. Jonah Jameson area of Spider-Man comics. We can see here that she's trying to be a reporter, and it gets brought up that she was actually with Kraven the Hunter when she was supposed to be doing a story on him. And if you remember, Kraven the Hunter was in the earlier issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. If I remember off the top of my head, I think it was issue 17 maybe? Or issue 19? I'm not literally going off the top of my head. But I feel like I remember her in the comics interviewing Kraven. So I'm also liking that continuity there, where something that happened over 100 issues ago can still be brought up in the continuity of this Ultimate Spider-Man series. I feel like the Ultimate Spider-Man comics do that really well, how the linear storyline of characters and the way that characters develop and things that have happened sort of stay in the universe, like they don't get forgotten as easily. It's really cool. But moving on, something else that lends itself to the idea that this comic is just a filler comic is the fact that we've got this random appearance of Omega Red wanting to fight J. Jonah Jameson, and Omega Red is not really like a crazy villain or anything, and this fight that we're seeing on screen in the comic that's about to happen, it sort of just happens as a reason for Spider-Man to fight a villain, and then after that the fight's over and the comic just goes back to business as usual. So again, the villain Omega Red is being used just to fill up the pages of this comic. But on the other hand, what I did like is the fact that it has history. The reason why he wants to fight J. Jonah Jameson is because of a fight that happened in the past Ultimate Spider-Man series between Omega Red and Spider-Man, and J. Jonah Jameson reported on it. And it's so funny as well because I actually really understand what he's talking about, because in my professional career, I'm now a freelance videographer, so your reputation is kind of what gets you clients and gets you work. So I can definitely see how Omega Red being put in the newspaper as being beaten by a child such as Spider-Man, or a teenager at least, would be so damaging to his business. So it's so strange how even as a villain, like you as a normal reader, can sort of empathize with that and understand why he's mad, especially if you're in freelance and you're self-employed and you sort of like your reputation is something that you value. Anyway, we're kind of coming up to the end of the fight now, and what I love is how, because Omega Red went out of his way to try and improve his reputation, he's inadvertently come back up against the same problem as earlier, which was being beaten by Spider-Man, and now it's even worse because it's happened twice, which is just going to hurt his business even more. And so these things have like a kind of ironic way of working themselves out, and so that was pretty cool. But we do join Peter Parker and the rest of his classmates back at school, going back to the present of when Peter Parker is explaining what's happened. I just love how he had a legitimate reason as to how he destroyed his baby, because if it was in any other building, then he wouldn't have had an excuse. So it's pretty funny. But yeah, we're pretty much at the end of the issue, and my overall thoughts is that yeah, it was a good issue, but it wasn't needed, it wasn't necessary. And the Ultimate Spider-Man comics have a really good reputation for each issue having somewhat integral part of the plot or storyline in the entirety of the Ultimate Spider-Man series at least, whereas ever since the art style has changed from the original Mark Bagley comic, there's been quite a lot more of these filler issues, and it's probably because the Ultimatum storyline is coming up within the next few issues. So yeah, it was good, but if this was releasing today, I'd probably skip it and just wait for the next issue. Okay, don't go anywhere. Usually I do like a bit of a roundup thing at the end of these videos, but I'm going to stop doing that because really it doesn't need to be done. We give a review for basically the entire video. Why do I need to do a roundup review at the end? Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to know anything else about like what I'm doing, like literally just follow me on Instagram, the links are in the description. I'm going to go, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.